Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Johanna Chan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Hong Kong's Omicron tally jumps to 58, with health officials discussing contingency plans. Emergency units at public hospitals are crowded as the temperature plunges. And the city shivers as the mercury falls below 10 degrees, but some still take to the icy water. Another 14 Omicron cases have been confirmed in Hong Kong, taking the total to 58. Among the patients is Hong Kong karate team member Lau Chi-ming, who returned from the Asian Championships in Kazakhstan earlier this month. 7 other men and 6 women were also found with the variant. There were 9 imported COVID cases today. They included 2 more karate team members and 4 aircrew. One of the crew members returned from Australia 3 days ago. She had been in Hong Kong during the incubation period, and her building in Macaus has been slapped with a testing order. The latest COVID figures were released as health officials met to discuss contingency plans in case of a 5th wave. As the Christmas holiday weekend drew to a close, health authorities noted a rise in imported COVID cases. They said 80% of the new patients were infected with the Omicron variant. Health Chief Sophia Chan disclosed today that she met the Department of Health, the Hospital Authority, and the Food and Health Bureau before Christmas to draw up a strategy.
We have discussed about the response, the prevention and response plan in the direction of our capacity, obviously. Of course, it's a testing capacity, our quarantine facilities, our isolation hospital facilities, as well as what if Omicron really have an outbreak in Hong Kong, whether we need to tighten our social distancing measures and so on.
Chan did not elaborate on specific social distancing measures. The authorities have said there should be enough hospital places in case of another outbreak. Currently, there are around 900 beds in North Lantau and Princess Margaret hospitals, with around 150 occupied. If demand soars, the government will consider using 1,700 beds in other hospitals and second-tier isolation wards. It may also set up 500 beds in the Asia World Expo, which was earlier used as a quarantine center. Authorities said the facility could accommodate patients with less serious symptoms. This came along with a call for people to get jabs, be it their first, second, or third. From New Year's Day, all adults can get booster shots 6 months after their second jab. Civil Service Secretary Patrick Nip, who heads the vaccination program, took to the airwaves this morning to announce that 35,000 doses can be administered each day in the 10 vaccination centers next year. The latest average was around 13,500 doses per day. Nip also lauded the mobile vaccination stations as a success, pointing out it was convenient for the elderly. He said the scheme is set to resume next Friday. A man who studies in New York has become Macaus' first Omicron case. The 23-year-old tested positive on arrival in Macau from the United States after a layover in Singapore. He was double jabbed but had a cough and excessive phlegm. The student is Macaus' 78th imported COVID case in 2 years. Health authorities urge Macau citizens overseas not to undertake unnecessary travel. Cancelled plans, delayed flights, and disrupted travel plans. That's what many around the world faced over Christmas in the face of the fast-spreading Omicron variant. Winna Wong reports.
It was a Christmas traveler's worst nightmare for many at the Fort Lauderdale airport in the U.S. state of Florida.
Where are you guys heading?
Michigan.
And was your flight canceled?
It was.
Yes. So what now?
So we rebooked.
Yeah, we scrambled.
This family is just one of many affected in the United States after more than 700 domestic flights were canceled over Christmas. A similar number of flights into or out of the U.S. were also scrapped as air travel disruptions went into a 3rd day. Airlines including Delta, United, and JetBlue blamed the Omicron variant for staff shortages that led to the cancellations. Globally, more than 6,000 flights were grounded during the Christmas weekend. Across the Atlantic, scientists in Britain are set to brief Prime Minister Boris Johnson to help him decide whether restrictions should be tightened. The country had a record 122,000 cases on Friday, including many Omicron infections. COVID has impacted the retail sector, with another grim year of Boxing Day sales. The iconic Harrods luxury department store in London reported a sharp drop in the number of shoppers from the last pre-COVID Christmas in 2019.
Shopping was one of the first things to suffer alongside hospitality and the arts, because when you're making decisions about trying to stay safe so you can enjoy a family Christmas, you're not going to perhaps put yourselves in circumstances of an extra meal out with friends or going on a shopping trip.
In the Belgian capital, Brussels, thousands of people from the arts sector protested. Performers, cinema operators, and event organizers spoke out against the government's decision to close down cultural life.
It gives me joy, culture, it gives me hope, and now in these times, these desperate times, even that is taken away. So I'm really sad and upset that this still is happening.
Under measures that took effect yesterday, cinemas and performance venues have been told to close, but events like Christmas markets were allowed to go on. Winna Wong, HKIBC.
China has reported more COVID cases as drastic measures are imposed to curb new outbreaks. Another 162 local infections were confirmed yesterday, 150 in the city of Xi'an alone. A mass disinfection operation began last night in the new COVID hotspot, which has registered 635 local cases in the past 3 weeks. The 13 million residents of Xi'an were given just a few hours' notice before clouds of disinfectant began covering every crevice of their city. The emergency units of public hospitals in Hong Kong have been packed as the weather turned colder. Health officials urge those who are not in severe pain to go to outpatient clinics. Hospital Authority Chief Executive Tony Ko warned this morning that the number of patients will rise as the temperature drops. He said elderly and chronically ill patients may get strokes, heart diseases, and joint problems. Ko urged those who do not have serious ailments to avoid the emergency units of public hospitals and seek treatment in outpatient and private clinics. His appeal came as the accident and emergency service at United Christian Hospital was packed with people who faced a waiting time of over 4 hours. This man said he will go home and have a shower before returning. He said it may take 6 to 7 hours to see a doctor to treat the leg pains he has been suffering for the past 2 to 3 days. The Kwun Tong Hospital has the highest bed utilization rate at 114%. The situation is similar in 9 other public hospitals. Queen Elizabeth Hospital placed a notice warning patients that they might have a long wait. Princess Margaret Hospital's emergency unit also had a wait time of over 4 hours. Tributes continue to pour into South Africa following the death of the country's anti-apartheid icon Desmond Tutu. President Cyril Ramaphosa described him as a great tree that had fallen.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu was one of our nation's finest patriots. He was a man of unwavering courage, of principled conviction, and whose life was spent in the service of others. Our nation's loss is indeed a global bereavement. In honor of the life and contribution of Desmond Tutu,
people came with flowers to lay outside his home in Soweto. There were also tributes near Cape Town's St. George's Cathedral. President Ramaphosa announced the capital would go into a 7-day period of mourning before Tutu is to be buried there. The beloved archbishop and activist died yesterday at the age of 90. Chinese astronauts have completed the second spacewalk outside their space station. Mainland space officials said 2 astronauts completed their tasks smoothly and returned to the core module after about 6 hours. Winna Wong reports.
At around 6:45 p.m. yesterday, Ye Guangfu opened the airlock of China's space station to step into open space. It was the second spacewalk by the Shenzhou 13 crew, but Ye's first, since he stayed inside to support the operation back in November. He was followed by his commander, Zhai Zhigang. Wang Yaping, the first woman from China to conduct a spacewalk, stayed behind in the cabin this time. Zhai and Ye carried out a number of tasks, including lifting a panoramic camera outside the station using a robotic arm. They also installed foot fixers outside the cabin before returning to the spaceship after 6 hours outside. It's been over 70 days since the trio were launched into space on the Shenzhou 13. They've been living and working in the Tianhe core module of the space station. China's self-developed Feitian spacesuits have also been put to the test. Zhai, Ye, and Wang are on a record-breaking 6-month mission and are set to return to Earth in the spring. Wina Wang, HKIBC.
The observatory has issued the cold weather warning as Hong Kong shivered during its coldest day so far this winter. But some braved the wintry conditions and went ahead with their morning exercises. The temperature on Tai Mo Shan, Hong Kong's highest peak, plunged to around 5 degrees Celsius early this morning. But that didn't stop intrepid cyclists from heading up the mountain at 6 a.m. for their regular exercise. This man said it was not that bad, as it wasn't too windy. He added if the weather worsens, he would walk instead of cycle. Across the city at the Saiwan swimming shed, some brave souls insisted on sticking to their daily routine, despite the wintry conditions. They splashed around in the water as they performed their morning exercise. This woman said she has been swimming in the spot even in the winter for 45 years. But even if fortune favors the bold can still get cold. In this case, many of them came out of the icy water and dashed to the showers. Out in the street, people were decked up in thick winter jackets as the mercury in the urban area dropped to 9.9 degrees, making it the coldest day so far this winter. It was 1 to 2 degrees lower in the new territories.
Winter monsoon is bringing cold weather to the southern China, and the cold weather warning was issued. The weather will still be cold, and tomorrow morning, if you know any elderly or person alone, please call them or visit them occasionally to check if they need any assistance.
Loy expects fine and dry weather in the following days, with the temperature rising to 19 degrees. On to the weather now. It will continue to be cold tomorrow with a temperature between 11 and 17 degrees. The mercury will be slightly higher for the rest of the week. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Monday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Johanna Chan. Good evening.